The search for meaning often begins in silence, in a moment when life feels blurry or heavy, even if nothing looks wrong from the outside. You might wake up one day and feel as if something deep inside you is calling out, asking for attention, asking for understanding. This feeling doesn't always come as a dramatic event. Sometimes it is just a soft discomfort, a sense that you are living but not truly alive. In the rush of modern life, you may brush this feeling aside because there is always something you need to do, somewhere you need to go, and someone you need to be. But even as the world keeps pulling you forward, this inner whisper continues to rise within you, asking you to pause and listen. In today's world, everything moves quickly. You are surrounded by noise, notifications, conversations, responsibilities, and endless demands for your attention. It becomes easy to lose track of your inner world when the outer world feels louder and more urgent. You may find yourself constantly comparing your life with others, measuring your success based on images and ideas that don't belong to you. Slowly, without even noticing, you begin to drift away from yourself. And yet, somewhere beneath all the layers of noise, you feel a small ache, a quiet emptiness that refuses to disappear. This feeling is not a mistake or a weakness. It is the beginning of your search for meaning. Carl Jung often said that the questions that disturb us are the ones that lead us toward our true path. When you feel that something is missing, it is often a sign that your inner self is trying to communicate with you, urging you to reconnect with what truly matters. Instead of treating this confusion as a problem, you can begin to see it as an invitation, a doorway into a deeper understanding of who you are. Many people today feel disconnected because they are living lives shaped by expectations of family, society, culture, or the image they have created for themselves. When you follow a path that doesn't match your inner truth, a part of you begins to feel out of place. You may achieve things, you may look successful, but inside you feel incomplete. This is when you begin to sense that meaning does not come from the outside, it comes from within. And the first step in finding that meaning is to acknowledge that the longing inside you is real and important. When you finally slow down enough to notice this inner longing, you open a door into your deeper self. You begin to realize that you have emotions, dreams, and desires that you have ignored for a long time. Perhaps you have been playing a role, trying to be what others expect you to be. Perhaps you have followed a path that once felt right, but no longer feels true. Or maybe you have been so caught up in the demands of life that you forgot to ask yourself what you really want. These realizations can feel uncomfortable, but they are moments of awakening. They help you understand that your inner world needs attention and care. Jung believed that your inner voice, the quiet guidance that comes from your deepest self, holds the clues to your purpose. When you ignore it, life becomes heavy. When you listen to it, life begins to open again. This inner voice is not loud or pushy. It doesn't shout or demand. It speaks gently, through feelings, through intuition, through moments when something feels off, or through moments when something feels deeply right. The search for meaning begins the moment you choose to listen to this inner guidance. As you explore this feeling more deeply, you may notice that you have been carrying questions for a long time. Questions like, who am I really? What do I want my life to stand for? What brings me joy? What makes me feel alive? These questions can be frightening because they require honesty, but they are also liberating because they lead you toward the truth that has been waiting inside you. This first stage of the journey is not about finding all the answers at once. It is about allowing the questions to exist. It is about letting yourself feel the longing rather than running away from it. When you sit quietly with yourself, without distractions, without pretending, you begin to see things more clearly. You begin to understand that meaning is not something the world gives you. It is something you create By understanding your experiences, your emotions, and your inner calling, you start to see that your life has layers, that your thoughts have depth, and that your feelings carry wisdom, even the painful feelings. The confusion, the emptiness, the restlessness, have something important to tell you. They are signals from your inner self, urging you to look within. This first step in the search for meaning is gentle but powerful. It is not about taking action or making big changes. It is simply about noticing what is happening inside you. It is about acknowledging the small ache that reminds you that something deeper is waiting to be understood. As you begin to trust this feeling, you slowly reconnect with your true self, the part of you that wants a life filled with purpose, truth, and authenticity. It is important to remember that this journey does not demand perfection. You don't need to have everything figured out. You don't need to know where the path will lead. All you need is the willingness to listen to yourself. All you need is the courage to admit that you want something more than just routine and repetition. This alone is enough to begin transforming your life. As you continue to listen to your inner world, you will start to notice the subtle difference between what the world expects from you and what your soul desires. This awareness grows slowly, like a sunrise gently brightening the sky. You begin to recognize the moments when you are being true to yourself and the moments when you are acting only to please others. You begin to see the parts of your life that feel heavy and the parts that feel natural and real. And this clarity becomes the foundation for everything that comes next. The search for meaning is a personal journey, one that only you can walk. But in this first stage, you are not asked to change your entire life. You are simply asked to wake up to yourself, to hear the quiet whisper of your inner world, to recognize that your longing for meaning is valid and deeply human. And as you become aware of this inner truth, you naturally start moving toward the next step of the journey, understanding how much of your life has been shaped by the expectations of the modern world, and beginning the shift from outer demands to inner truth. As you begin to notice your inner longing for meaning, something else slowly becomes clear. You start to see how much of your life has been shaped by expectations that did not come from within you. For a long time, you may have believed that the choices you made were entirely your own. But as you look more closely, you begin to understand that many of those choices were influenced by what society, family, culture, or even your peers told you was right. This realization is not meant to make you feel guilty or regretful. It is simply part of waking up. When you become aware of the forces that have shaped you, you gain the power to decide whether they still belong in your life. Modern life carries a heavy weight of expectations. You are expected to succeed, to achieve, to keep up, to fit in, to present yourself in ways that please others. You may be encouraged to chase goals that don't match your inner desires, or to live by standards that never felt natural to you. And because these expectations are so common, so widely accepted, you might not even notice them at first. They become part of the environment, like air, unseen, but always influencing you. You may have been taught that success means having a certain career, earning a certain amount of money, or living a lifestyle that looks impressive to others. You may have been taught that your value depends on what you achieve, rather than who you are. These ideas can shape your life so deeply that you begin to confuse them with your own true desires. As a result, even when you accomplish these goals, you might feel strangely unsatisfied, as if something is missing. This is because you are following a script that is not written by your soul. Carl Jung often spoke about the persona, the mask each person wears to fit into society. The persona is not necessarily bad, it helps you function in the world. But when the mask becomes too rigid, too dominant, you lose touch with the person behind it. You begin acting in ways that please others but disconnect you from yourself. You might smile when you don't feel like smiling, agree when you want to say no, or pursue a path that impresses others but leaves you empty inside. The persona becomes heavy, and the weight of expectations becomes a burden you silently carry. As you reflect on your life, you may start to recognize how much energy you've spent trying to be what others wanted you to be. Maybe you followed a career path that didn't inspire you. Maybe you stayed in situations that drained you because you were afraid of disappointing someone. Maybe you shaped your personality to match the image people expected from you. These patterns often begin in childhood and continue throughout adulthood without being questioned. But now, as you search for meaning, you finally begin to question them. This stage of the journey is about understanding how deeply these expectations have influenced you. You don't judge yourself for following them. You simply observe. You begin to see the difference between who you truly are and who you learn to be. You begin to recognize that the life you were living may not have been aligned with your inner truth. This awareness can be uncomfortable, but it is also liberating. It gives you the power to reshape your life. Modern culture encourages constant striving. It tells you that you need to be more, achieve more, collect more, and show more. But while the world pushes you outward, meaning pulls you inward, when you chase the expectations of others, you lose touch with your inner compass. You may reach milestones, but you still feel lost. You may appear successful, but you feel disconnected from yourself. And no matter how much you achieve, the emptiness inside remains, because the achievements were not rooted in your soul. This part of the journey invites you to slow down and reflect. It invites you to ask yourself honest questions about the life you are living. Are your goals truly yours, or did someone else plant them in your mind? Are you living in a way that feels natural and authentic? Or are you performing a role because you fear judgment or failure? Are you making choices based on your heart or based on fear, pressure, or comparison? These questions help you understand the invisible forces that have shaped your path. Many people feel a sense of confusion or sadness at this stage. They realize that they have spent years, sometimes decades, living according to a script that doesn't match their true nature. But this realization should not be seen as wasted time. It should be seen as awakening. You were not ready to see the truth before. Now you are. And this awareness becomes the foundation for transformation. As you become more conscious of the expectations shaping your life, you also start to feel the tension between the outer world and your inner world. The outer world demands conformity, predictability, and performance. The inner world demands honesty, meaning, and authenticity. When you try to satisfy both at the same time, you feel pulled in opposite directions. This inner conflict is often the cause of stress, anxiety, and emotional exhaustion. You may feel like you are living two lives: the life the world sees and the life you feel inside. Jung believed that this conflict is a sign that you are ready to grow. When the outer expectations no longer match your inner truth, your soul begins to push for change. It pushes gently at first, through subtle dissatisfaction. But if you ignore the signs, it pushes harder, creating emotional discomfort, restlessness, or even breakdowns. This is not punishment. It is your inner wisdom trying to guide you back to your authentic path. As you explore this tension more deeply, you begin to separate what belongs to you from what belongs to others. You begin to identify the expectations you want to release. You may recognize that some beliefs were never yours to carry. You may see that you have been living under pressure that you can finally let go. You may feel relief as you realize that you don't have to pretend anymore. You are allowed to be yourself. You are allowed to choose your own definition of meaning and success. This awareness naturally prepares you for the next stage of the journey, turning inward to explore the parts of yourself that have been hidden or ignored. Once you understand the weight of expectations shaping your life, you become ready to confront your shadow. the forgotten or rejected parts of your personality that hold essential truths about who you really are. When you begin to see how much of your life has been shaped by expectations, something inside you naturally turns inward. You start to notice that there are parts of you that you have kept hidden for a long time. These parts may not be visible to others, but you can feel them quietly waiting beneath the surface. Jung called this hidden side the shadow. The shadow is not evil, dangerous, or something to be ashamed of. It is simply the collection of all the emotions, thoughts, desires, and memories you pushed away because you believed they did not fit who you were supposed to be. Everyone has a shadow. It grows whenever you hide your true feelings, deny your fears, suppress your pain, or pretend to be someone you're not. For a long time, you may ignore it without realizing it exists. But when you begin your search for meaning, the shadow becomes impossible to avoid. It begins to show itself through sudden emotions, unexplained sadness, irritations you can't understand, or moments when you feel disconnected from yourself. These experiences are not signs that something is wrong with you. They are signs that your inner world is asking to be acknowledged. The shadow forms slowly, often starting in childhood. Maybe you learned that certain emotions were unacceptable. You might have been told not to cry, not to show anger, not to be too sensitive, or not to express yourself freely. So you pushed those feelings down. Maybe you were encouraged to behave in a certain way, and whenever your natural self did not fit that image, you hid parts of yourself. Over time, these hidden pieces became part of your shadow. As you grew older, new experiences added to it. Moments when you felt embarrassed, rejected, ignored, or misunderstood. Every time you said, "I shouldn't feel this," or "I can't show this," another part of you slipped into the shadow. At first, this seems helpful, because hiding your true feelings can make life easier in the moment. But as you grow, the shadow becomes heavier. It begins to influence your life from the inside. You may react strongly to small things because some old pain is still there, unhealed and unseen. You may feel insecure even when nothing is wrong because hidden self-doubt keeps whispering in the background. You may feel afraid of being truly known because you believe people will judge you if they see what's inside. All of this happens because the shadow has not been brought into the light. Facing your shadow is not about digging up every painful experience or judging yourself. It is about gently recognizing the parts of you that have been ignored for too long. When you look inward, you might find fears you didn't know were there. Fear of being inadequate, fear of rejection, fear of failing, or even fear of being yourself. You might uncover anger you never expressed or sadness you never allowed yourself to feel. You may find dreams you abandoned because they didn't match the expectations around you. And you may discover strengths that were buried because someone once told you they weren't valuable. This stage of your journey can feel uncomfortable because you are seeing yourself more honestly than ever before. But honesty is where growth begins. When you stop running from your shadow, it no longer has control over you. Instead of influencing your feelings from the dark, it becomes something you can understand and transform. The moment you acknowledge a hidden part of yourself, that part becomes lighter, softer, easier to carry. It stops being a burden and becomes a piece of wisdom. The shadow is not your enemy. It is like a room inside you that has been locked for years. When you open the door, the darkness begins to fade and you discover forgotten treasures. Your creativity, your passion, your sensitivity, your courage, your truth. Some of the qualities you judged as weaknesses may actually be strengths that were never allowed to grow. For example, if you hid your sensitivity because you were told to be strong, you may find that sensitivity gives you empathy and depth. If you hid your creativity because you were told to be practical, you may find that creativity is the source of your inspiration and purpose. As you explore your shadow, you begin to understand your emotions in a new way. You see that your reactions are not random. They come from unhealed moments inside you. When you feel irritated, it might be because something touches an old wound. When you feel jealous, it might be because a part of you longs for something you denied yourself. When you feel anxious, it might be because your shadow is carrying fears you never addressed. This understanding allows you to move through life with more compassion toward yourself. You stop blaming yourself for your emotions and start learning from them. This part of the journey takes patience and gentleness. You cannot force yourself to face everything at once. You simply allow yourself to be honest. You pay attention to the moments that trigger strong emotions. You notice the patterns in your behavior. You listen to the feelings that rise within you instead of pushing them away. Over time, this creates a powerful shift. You begin to feel more connected to yourself, more grounded and more real. The more you accept your shadow, the more whole you become. You no longer need to hide behind masks or pretend to be someone else. You become less afraid of judgment because you understand yourself more deeply. You feel less pressure to be perfect because you see that imperfection is part of being human. You gain confidence, not from proving yourself to others, but from embracing all parts of who you are. As you continue this inner work, something beautiful happens. Your shadow begins to guide you instead of holding you back. It reveals your true desires, your natural strengths, the direction your life wants to take. It helps you understand what you need to heal, what you need to change, and what you need to embrace. It becomes a silent teacher, showing you the path toward authenticity and freedom. And as this connection with your shadow deepens, you begin to hear your inner voice more clearly. You start to sense what your soul truly wants, things that were hidden beneath fear and expectation. This clarity naturally leads you to the next stage of the journey, where you discover the real desires of your inner self, desires that have been waiting patiently for you to finally listen. As you begin to face your shadow and understand the hidden parts of yourself, something subtle but powerful starts to change inside you. The noise of the outside world becomes a little quieter, and the voice within you becomes a little clearer. It is not loud, and it never forces you to listen. It speaks softly, patiently, waiting for the moment when you are ready to hear it. This inner voice is what Jung often described as the deeper self, the part of you that knows what you truly want, what feels meaningful, and what gives your life direction. But because the world is full of constant demands, distractions, and expectations, most people never learn how to hear this voice. They mistake the opinions of others for their own thoughts. They confuse outside pressure for inner purpose. They lose contact with the quiet guidance that comes from within. When you slow down and turn inward, something important happens. You begin to notice gentle signals that were always there but remained hidden under the noise of daily life. You may feel small pulls towards certain activities, dreams, or places that resonate deeply with your heart. You may feel a quiet discomfort that tells you something in your life is out of alignment. You may feel an inner excitement that points toward a path you have been afraid to take. These signals do not come through logic alone. They come through intuition, emotion, and a deep sense of knowing that cannot easily be explained. Listening to your inner voice is not always easy. At first, it may feel like you are walking through fog, unsure of what is real and what is imagined. Doubt may rise inside you. You may wonder whether you are making the right choice or whether you are simply dreaming. But the more you pay attention, the clearer the inner voice becomes. It is like tuning a radio. The more you adjust the frequency, the more clearly the message comes through. With practice, you learn to distinguish between the voice of fear, the voice of society, and the voice of your true self. Often, the inner voice does not give you complete instructions. It rarely reveals your full life path all at once. Instead, it guides you step by step, like a lantern showing you only the next few feet of the road. It may whisper that you need rest. It may tell you to be honest about something you have been avoiding. It may remind you of a forgotten passion that once made you feel alive. It may encourage you to let go of something that is draining your energy. Each small message leads you closer to a life filled with meaning. As you continue listening, you start to notice patterns. You realize that the moments when you feel most alive or most at peace are connected to something deeper. Maybe you feel alive when you help others. Maybe you feel calm when you create. Maybe you feel energized when you learn. Maybe you feel inspired when you explore new possibilities. These moments reveal the direction your soul naturally wants to grow. They show you what brings purpose to your existence. But most people overlook these signals because they are too busy trying to meet expectations or avoid judgment. When you truly listen to your inner voice, you begin to understand that meaning is not something you find outside yourself. It is something you uncover within. Meaning grows from your values, your experiences, your wounds, your dreams, and the parts of yourself you reclaim. It grows from the harmony between your inner truth and the life you choose to live. And as this harmony becomes stronger, you start to feel a quiet confidence that does not depend on external approval. You recognize that your life has a direction that is uniquely yours, even if others do not see it yet. Many people fear listening to their inner voice because they worry it will lead them away from comfort or familiarity. And sometimes it does. Sometimes the inner voice calls you toward change, growth, and transformation. It may ask you to leave behind situations, habits, or relationships that no longer support your true self. It may ask you to take risks, to speak your truth, or to step into a version of yourself that feels unfamiliar. This can be frightening, but the fear is often a sign that you are moving closer to your authentic path. Growth rarely happens without discomfort. Your inner voice also helps you recognize the difference between desires that come from your ego and desires that come from your deeper self. Ego desires are usually loud, impatient, and focused on appearances or quick rewards. They fade quickly and leave you feeling empty. The deeper self, however, is steady and quiet. It pulls you toward long-term fulfillment, meaningful goals, and a life you can be proud of. When you follow this deeper guidance, you feel more grounded and more aligned with who you truly are. Listening deeply requires honesty. You must be willing to admit when something is not working, when you have been pretending, or when you have been living someone else's idea of success. You must be willing to face your fears and insecurities without letting them control your choices. You must be willing to trust that your inner self knows more about your life's direction than your fears ever will. Honesty opens the door to transformation. Over time, this inner listening becomes a natural part of your life. You no longer rush from one task to another without awareness. You begin to notice how certain people or situations affect your energy. You pay attention to what feels right and what feels forced. Little by little, you start choosing actions that match your inner truth. You begin creating a life that reflects who you truly are, not who you were taught to be. And with each honest choice, you feel more meaning, more purpose, and more connection to yourself. Eventually, you realize that the inner voice is not separate from you. It is you, the deepest, wisest, most authentic version of yourself. It has always been there, waiting patiently for you to listen. And now, as you hear it more clearly, it guides you toward the next step of your journey. You begin shaping your outer life to match your inner truth. As your inner voice becomes clearer and you begin to understand what truly matters to you, the next natural step is learning how to shape your outer life so it matches your inner truth. This is where meaning becomes something real, something visible, something you can feel in your daily experience. Many people think that meaning arrives suddenly, like a flash of insight or a dramatic moment. But in reality, it grows slowly through the choices you make and the actions you take. It grows when your inner understanding begins to show itself in the way you speak, the way you work, the way you spend your time, and the way you treat the people around you. In this stage, you begin creating a life that feels connected to who you really are, not simply a life shaped by old habits or expectations. As you start making choices that reflect your inner truth, you may feel a mixture of excitement and uncertainty. Excitement comes because you finally feel aligned with yourself. Like something inside you is waking up after being asleep for years. You may feel a sense of lightness, clarity, and possibility. But uncertainty often shows up as well because you are stepping into new territory, moving away from familiar patterns and routines. The old path may have been comfortable, even if it did not fulfill you. The new path calls you toward growth, which can feel both inspiring and uncomfortable. It is important to understand that this uncertainty is normal. It is a sign that you are moving into a more authentic chapter of your life. One of the first things you may notice is that your values start to become clearer. You begin to recognize what actually matters and what no longer holds meaning for you. You may notice that certain activities drain your energy, while others make you feel alive. You may realize that some relationships support your growth, while others keep you stuck in old patterns. And once you see these things clearly, you cannot unsee them. This awareness gently pushes you to make changes, even if the changes are small at first. You may begin by adjusting how you spend your free time, choosing activities that nourish your mind and spirit. You may begin speaking more honestly about your feelings, expressing what you truly think instead of saying what others want to hear. You may begin setting boundaries where you previously allowed others to shape your life. Each small step brings your outer life closer to your inner truth. As you continue this process, you may feel a growing desire to remove the things that no longer align with your deeper self. This does not always require big, dramatic changes. Sometimes it is the quiet decision to stop pretending to enjoy something you do not enjoy. Sometimes it is the simple choice to rest instead of constantly pushing yourself. Sometimes it is the realization that you do not have to please everyone to be worthy. These small acts of honesty create space for new experiences and opportunities that match who you are becoming. Meaning grows in the space you create by letting go of what no longer belongs. At some point, you may feel the need to make more noticeable changes. You might choose a new direction in your career, one that reflects your passions instead of your fears. You might build healthier routines that support your emotional and physical well-being. You might begin learning something that has always interested you but that you never gave yourself permission to explore. You might even make decisions that surprise the people around you because they are used to the old version of you. When you make choices rooted in your inner truth, you begin to feel a deep sense of belonging within your own life. You no longer wake up feeling like you are playing a role. Instead, you feel present, awake, and honest. Meaning also grows through the way you handle challenges. Life will always bring difficulties, but when you face those challenges with clarity about who you are, they begin to feel purposeful rather than random. You start seeing obstacles as opportunities to grow stronger, wiser, and more grounded. You understand that challenges do not exist to break you. They exist to shape you. They reveal your strengths and highlight where you still need to grow. When your actions are aligned with your inner truth, you begin meeting challenges with courage instead of fear. You trust yourself more deeply because you are no longer divided inside. As your outer life becomes more aligned with your inner truth, your relationships also begin to evolve. You start attracting people who resonate with your authenticity and who support your growth. You may drift away from those who only connected with the old version of you, and although this may feel painful at times, it is a natural part of transformation. When you change, your relationships change with you. The people who are meant to walk with you on this deeper journey will remain. They will understand your need for meaning, honesty, and inner alignment. It will grow with you instead of holding you back. With time, this alignment begins to create stability in your life. You feel more centered in your decisions, less influenced by outside pressure, and more capable of trusting your intuition. You stop comparing yourself to others because you understand that everyone has their own unique path. You no longer chase things that look impressive, but feel empty. You choose what nourishes your spirit, even if it looks simple to the outside world. Meaningful living is not about achieving everything. It is about choosing the things that matter. And when you choose what matters, life feels richer, deeper, and more satisfying. This stage is also where you begin to experience a sense of harmony between your inner world and your outer actions. You feel aligned, and that alignment creates peace. You no longer feel divided between what you want and what you do. Instead, your choices reflect your truth. This harmony does not mean life becomes perfect or easy. It means you face life with a sense of purpose, clarity, and confidence. You know why you are doing what you are doing. You know what you stand for. You know who you are becoming. As this transformation continues, something beautiful begins to happen. You start to feel inspired by your own life. You look at your choices and recognize your growth. You realize that you are actively shaping your life, rather than simply reacting to circumstances. This inspiration becomes fuel for even deeper change. It encourages you to continue listening, continue growing, and continue stepping into the person you are meant to be. And as this alignment deepens, you naturally move toward the next stage of your journey, where the meaning you create within yourself begins to radiate outward, influencing others and contributing to the world in ways you may not even realize. When your life reflects your inner truth, your presence alone becomes a source of inspiration and guidance for those around you. As your life begins to reflect your inner truth and you feel more aligned with who you really are, something even deeper begins to unfold. You start to understand that the search for meaning is not a single moment or a single achievement. It is a lifelong process, a journey that continues to evolve as you evolve. This final stage is not the end of your growth, but a new beginning where you realize that meaning is something you create each day through awareness, intention, and authenticity. It is here that you see how everything you have experienced, the confusion, the struggle, the questions, the inner battles, has been shaping you into someone wiser, stronger, and more connected to your true self. In this stage, you begin to feel a sense of peace with the uncertainty of life. You no longer panic when you don't know what comes next, because you understand that meaning is found in the journey, not just in the destination. Instead of rushing to reach a final answer, you learn to embrace the unfolding process. You realize that your life is not a straight line but a continuous movement, a cycle of becoming, learning, and transforming. You learn to accept that you do not need to have everything figured out in order to live with purpose. You simply need to remain present, aware, and willing to grow. You also start to see how your personal search for meaning connects with the world around you. The alignment you have created within yourself does not stay locked inside. It begins to flow outward through your actions, your relationships, and the energy you bring into every situation. People around you may sense a new calmness in you, a new depth, a new clarity. You become someone who inspires others, not because you are perfect, but because you are real. You become someone who listens with genuine attention, speaks with authenticity, and moves through life with intention. Without realizing it, you begin to influence people simply by being yourself. This stage invites you to reflect on how far you have come. You remember the times when you felt disconnected, confused, or unsure of yourself. You remember feeling shaped by expectations, living according to what others thought you should be. You remember avoiding parts of yourself because you were afraid to face them, and now you see how each challenge led you closer to your truth. You see how every struggle helped you discover strength you didn't know you had. You begin to appreciate the journey not as a series of problems, but as a pathway to deeper understanding. As you reach this level of awareness, you develop a new relationship with your shadow. Instead of seeing it as something to fear or reject, you recognize it as a source of insight. You understand that your imperfections, your doubts, and your emotions are all teachers. They guide you toward growth if you are willing to listen. The parts of yourself you once tried to hide now become sources of compassion. You understand others more deeply because you have learned to understand yourself. This creates a sense of connection with the world an awareness that everyone is fighting their own inner battle, everyone is searching for their own meaning. At this point, you may feel a growing desire to share your inner discoveries, not through preaching or controlling others, but through the quiet influence of authenticity. When you speak your truth, others feel safer to speak theirs. When you show vulnerability, others feel permission to do the same. When you live with purpose, others begin questioning their own paths. In this way, your personal search for meaning becomes something that supports others on their journeys. You begin to see that meaning is not only personal, it is relational. It grows in the connections you build, the kindness you offer, and the presence you bring into the world. You may also notice that your goals begin to change. You no longer chase things simply because they look impressive or because society says you should want them. Instead, you choose goals that resonate with your deeper values. You choose actions that bring fulfillment rather than validation. You choose relationships that feel genuine rather than convenient. And as you make these choices, your life becomes more coherent, more peaceful, and more meaningful. You are not pulled in different directions by conflicting desires. There is a unity inside you, a harmony that supports everything you do. This stage also teaches you the importance of balance. You learn that meaning is not only found in achievement, but also in rest, reflection, and presence. You understand that life is a mixture of light and shadow, joy and sorrow, clarity and confusion. And instead of resisting these contrasts, you learn to flow with them. You allow yourself to feel deeply without losing your center. You allow yourself to dream without becoming attached to a single outcome. You allow yourself to grow without forcing the process. This balance brings a sense of inner stability that remains steady even when life becomes unpredictable. Over time, this deeper understanding leads to a quiet kind of confidence, not arrogance, but a grounded assurance that comes from knowing who you are. You no longer feel the need to prove yourself because your worth is not measured by approval. You do not fear being misunderstood because you understand yourself. You do not depend on constant reassurance because your validation comes from within. This inner strength makes you resilient, helping you navigate life with calmness and clarity. And as this peace grows, you begin to experience meaning in the small moments. The sound of laughter, the warmth of sunlight, the comfort of stillness, the presence of people you love. You realize that meaning is not always found in grand achievements, but in simple experiences that touch the heart. You start to appreciate life more deeply, not for what it gives you, but for what it teaches you. You see beauty in places you once overlooked. You feel gratitude for things you once took for granted. This shift in perspective transforms your everyday experience into something richer and more purposeful. Eventually, you begin to understand that the search for meaning is not something separate from life. It is life itself. It is in the choices you make, the relationships you nurture, the truths you discover, and the courage you show in facing your inner world. It is in the way you grow, the way you love, and the way you become more honest with yourself. Meaning is not a treasure waiting to be found. It is something you create every time you choose authenticity over fear, awareness over avoidance, and growth over comfort. And with this realization, you reach the natural conclusion of this journey. You understand that the search for meaning is not about reaching a perfect destination, but about becoming more deeply connected to your true self. You see that every stage has brought you closer to this moment. And now, standing here with a clearer heart and a grounded mind, you step forward into the next chapter of your life, knowing that meaning will continue to grow with you as long as you remain open, aware, and true to yourself.